Gaming Today presents Cash Considerations.
Welcome to the Cash Considerations podcast. Today is Thursday, July 30th, and we made it, boys. We made it to the end of July, the return of the NBA to go with baseball. Two team sports in America. It's been a long road, but we're here. And before we get to the Fonzie parlay and everything else and the success of that, let's welcome in the boys. The format of the show is a little different today. We have a special guest with us. He's going to hang with us for a while. Cannot wait to get to him. But first and foremost, tonight, again, it's two guys in the one single square with one microphone. This week we'll start with @%Berg, Alan Berg. AB, what's up?
I'm here, man. That's about it. I'm just breathing. So, I've got an NBA action, so I'm good. So everything. Yeah.
It's the time to sweat. And, I mean, if there's anyone that knows the sweat, it's the guy next to you. You look like you've been sweating the Pelicans and Jazz already. The hair's messed up. You're shaking your head, yelling at the TV. We're at halftime of the Lakers and Clippers, so we have your attention right now. Mo Toy Pearson, @HeDStakes on Twitter. Mo, what is up?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. No, what's going on, fellas? I was sweating out the sky. They blew it, man.
Oh, WNBA started too. I apologize. That's my bad. I didn't mean to pass on the WNBA.
No, you did. You meant it.
I got to hear him ask why they gave her the last layup. I'm not going to use names.
I'm done cheering for a while.
Our producer extraordinaire, Reynolds. I am Reynolds 2305, upper left-hand corner on my screen, doing his job. Thank you, sir. Making sure everyone sounds good. And then welcoming today's show on the GT Cash Consideration guest line, we'll call it. Thank you, Zoom. We have the one, the only Todd Fuhrman, @Todd Fuhrman on Twitter. Todd, first of all, what's up? How are you, sir? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing well, guys. It's great to have sports back. We've waited anxiously for the return of the NBA. We got a little NHL coming on Saturday, an exhibition game, of course, going on right now with our beloved Golden Knights. Major League Baseball, it almost feels like we're inching closer to that semblance of normalcy. So let's hope that the worst is behind us and we can continue to move forward, especially as it pertains to the sports betting space.
Whew. Well said, sir. That's the way to come into the show.
There's no such thing as normal. That's not even a real word.
That's the
Terminator's got it all wrong.
Coming from a guy who's probably been sweating third division Ukrainian table tennis and was directly involved in the investigation here, I can only take what he's got to say.
You were the one asking for plays, my man. So you should.
Well, if you got inside information, I'm not afraid to bet a cockroach race down at the local watering hole. All that money is just as green. I'm just wondering, Dave and Alan, when you guys do this show, do you have a mute button for Mo? Or Alan, you have a big boxing glove, you just quickly throw an elbow, you take a 10-minute penalty, you do something along those lines if you have to silence him?
Here's the thing. First off, why are you telling people about this? We got to get the hell out of here now.
Of course.
Oh,
yeah,
Mo, we just every now and then I'll slap him. That does happen. So
it's the best way to do things, my friend. I applaud that kind of effort and the way that you can rule with an iron fist.
Yes.
We had the social distance when we were doing the show live in person. We couldn't sit too close to each other because Alan his right hand just pops. So we had to keep them separated. Now they're together and we're all apart, and Mo still doesn't stop talking.
I can't. It's impossible.
We have no mute button. To do it. That's actually Reynolds. That may be in addition to the show at some point when the budget increases. We'll talk to Howard Barish about that. That's at Gaming Today News, HB. The managing editor of Gaming Today is not with us tonight. The show is @GT Cash Consider on Twitter, and my Twitter is @SportsBKConsig for Sportsbook Consigliere. Thank you again for following the show, listening to the show, and tweeting out at us. We're doing a lot of things there. We got a lot of hits on the Fonzie parlay. We'll get to that later. Todd, let's start with you first. I have basically a list of things here. I don't know what to call you. So I'm just going to list them, and you can tell me. We have former oddsmaker / financial analyst at Caesars Palace, or with Caesars Corporation.
That works.
We have the host of the Bet the Board podcast, which is a hell of a nice T-shirt you're wearing.
Thank you. I appreciate the plug.
Okay. And then we have an analyst on Fox Bet Live with Clay Travis, Cousin Sal, and Rachel Bonetta.
Okay, we're good so far.
And I just have race guy. I don't know what to put it under. I don't know. It's NASCAR something, Race Hub. I couldn't figure out what it was called. You tell me.
No, you got it right, David. It's Race Hub. I mean, the way I kind of go about it, I say I'm a jack of all trades, a master of absolutely none in the grand scheme of things. So any platform they're going to give me to try and talk about sports, specifically sports betting, to make this more mainstream, to try and weave it into the conversation, I'm going to take full advantage. And it's great. I mean, if you'd have told me years ago when I got in this space right out of college back in 2005, 2006, that sports betting would be part of the day-to-day conversation, we'd be talking about all these professional teams in Vegas, I'd have laughed at you. But let's hope the next 10, 12 years are only as exciting as what we've gone through as far as the city's concerned over the last 10 or so.
Oh, that's couldn't agree more. Starting with back then, right, 2005. So it was Wesleyan is where you went to school?
That I did. Share an alma mater with Bill Belichick. He's won a few more Super Bowls than I think I'll ever have on my resume, so I can't really take credit for that. But let me say it was a much different experience when you go into a Division III school, you're playing hockey in a liberal arts environment, about 2,500 kids. I think I chose wisely when I was given the opportunity to pick between my commitment to collegiate athletics and my sports gambling career. I don't think this will come as a shock to anybody that at about 145 pounds soaking wet as a goalie was never going to get a cup of coffee in the NHL. So I figured there was a better chance for me to make money behind the counter than there was trying to stop 95-mile-an-hour slap shots.
Okay, so where is Wesleyan?
Lovely Middletown, Connecticut, about a stone's throw from Hartford on a good day. And I'd say about 40 minutes from Bristol. So, you know, the whole time I was there, I figured, okay, I'm right in the cradle of sports coverage. I'm going to go live in Bristol. I'm going to find a way into ESPN. Never would have imagined, honestly, that my career would have taken the path it has to bring me out to Vegas. My friends and family, they may have disagreed, knowing that I was trying to bet games at 12 to 13 and sending money to the Caribbean when I was a freshman in high school.
Criminal.
The boys can play even at Division III at that point. So like you said, stopping pucks wasn't in your future. But you're there in Connecticut, and you grew up in that area, right? So you were back east. How did you end up in Vegas?
You know what? I actually grew up in Chicago. Ended up out in Connecticut, though, Dave, after my sophomore year of high school. Went to prep school outside of Boston. Tried to figure out, hey, look, how can I get more exposure playing hockey? How can I get a slightly better education? And that's honestly probably one of the biggest opportunities that hockey gave me, was getting me into those kind of schools where I hopefully was able to take advantage. And to be quite honest, you know, I'd always been fascinated with gambling. Wasn't sure, how to get into that as a long-term profession. Thought forever that I was going to put my economics degree to good use, working on Wall Street. I was going to be the Jordan Belfort type, that I was going to grind out my 90-hour work weeks. I was going to work hard, play hard, and Manhattan was going to be in my future. Ended up waking up one morning in the spring and said, to hell with this. You know, how do I get to working in Vegas? Wasn't quite sure of how it was ultimately going to happen. Moved back home with my parents for the first time, and God, since I was 16. So, 6 years essentially was bartending, just trying to figure out exactly where my career was going to go. Ended up finding a financial analyst gig with Caesars and said, I'll figure out the rest ultimately when I get out here. And again, I count my lucky stars for the people I've met, some of the mentors I've had in the space that have given me the opportunity to kind of forge the path that I have, and wouldn't trade, honestly, any of it, for the world.
Okay. So you got into the financial analyst part of it first. How does one migrate from that to the sports book, which is a different – I mean, it's numbers, but it's a vastly different world. Financial analyst floor sports book.
Yeah, it's a great question, honestly. I mean, I got into finance, was doing special events, analyzing slot tournaments, trying to figure out how to reinvent the gaming floor, where we needed to put slot machines, were there enough blackjack tables. And I think, the running joke I have with some of my colleagues back then, and my lasting legacy as a financial analyst will be the influx of 6-to-5 blackjack that we tried to push throughout Caesars Entertainment. Because what we found then was that people wanted a blackjack game that they deemed more affordable. They could care less about the rules. So they'd rather play 6-to-5 blackjack at $10 tables than get good rules and play at 3-to-2. Ultimately, I tried to push to get myself into the sports book. And Chuck Esposito, who was running Race and Sports there as the VP, kind of took a liking to me, gave me the opportunity to spend my weekends down there asking stupid questions, trying to figure out how the betting markets work, learning to book to faces. And honestly, if he hadn't opened his doors and kind of rolled out the red carpet and dealt with me very patiently on a lot of those Saturdays and Sundays, I probably wouldn't have been able to establish the foundation. So I thank him. I thank Cindy Gauntz, who's still in the industry, Mark Tatino, who I believe now is working for Betfred. I mean, that was kind of the initial family until I could ultimately figure out how to get down there with a paid job. And it took me a full 3 years to go from financial analyst into working as a race and sports supervisor.
Cindy Gauntz name drop. That's my girl.
Cindy was great. Cindy taught me an awful lot about the industry and the kind of things you couldn't learn in textbooks. So I'll always have a debt of gratitude to Cindy.
That makes sense.
For learning the names and faces as it pertains to the business. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you've been around it then, and the names you just said have been around the business for a long time. We just had Chuck on the show last week, actually, and he, talked about, being off all that time. We were just off, and how the industry's changed a little bit. So that was an interesting perspective. So you never wrote tickets?
Nope, never wrote tickets. Only
not write tickets.
You don't have the guts to write tickets, Todd. You have no idea what it's like to write tickets.
Only learned how to troubleshoot the machines from time to time. But, you guys laugh. Honestly, there were a lot of ticket writers that we had that were real old school who didn't take, what I did seriously because I hadn't put my time into the trenches.
Right.
Didn't learn some of that stuff. So I had to work twice as hard to show them, hey, look, I openly admit I don't know what their job was like on a day-to-day, but I was going to be the support system. I was going to try and teach them as much as I could about sports and kind of crunch the numbers and learn the markets. But yes, I never wrote a ticket. So I often joke that, once I'm able to retire from this industry, sometime in my early to mid 60s, I'm going to come full circle.
Yes.
And I'll be back there writing tickets, working for Mo, knowing that Mo's going to work about 20-hour work weeks because he's too busy doing other stuff.
Too many hours, and those are the golden years for you. So I'll mark that down.
I appreciate that. Just keep a slot open for me when I'm ready to retire. I'm willing to come work for you, whatever book you're at, anywhere in town.
That's at least double the hours that Matoya is working right now. So that's
well, not legitimate. None of those are legitimate hours.
Oh.
So,
wait, Alan, you can't Alan, let's be honest. You can't multiply times 0. You still get 0. So double, triple, 100 times, 500 times.
That's a low blow.
It's all going to come back to 0.
I don't know how to multiply.
That doesn't shock me either.
The math lesson.
That's good. We've both seen your college football numbers.
Oh, man. We'll get to that.
So you get out of the book, Todd, and you get media gigs. Like, what's that transition? Because it first started with what, Race Hub, and you were doing race stuff? Because now, when we get to the end here, this Fox Bet Live show, superstar, big media personality, we'll get to that last. But how did you get from supervising ticket writers and talking about sports and telling people no smoking and no phones in the book to now you're on TV talking about at least NASCAR?
Yeah, well, you mentioned Chuck. Chuck ultimately left Caesars to take an opportunity at Fontainebleau and thought forever that, hey, I was going to go over there and that we were going to be able to build that book into something truly special. Obviously, we know circumstances didn't arise and allow that to happen. So Caesars at that point needed somebody to kind of hand the baton to in terms of radio opportunities and everything else. And I was real wet behind the ears, didn't know exactly what I was doing, made plenty of mistakes, said a myriad of things that I probably shouldn't have said publicly, but did that. And then actually left Caesars right before a football season and took a 6-month consulting gig with Don Best. And so Benji Cherniak brought me in over there. Okay. They were doing a lot of content, white label stuff for some of the sports books, both in the Caribbean and around the world, and said, hey, we need somebody that kind of speaks the language. They threw me into the deep end, and I worked closely with Brian Blessing, Kenny White to do a lot of those videos as an analyst, kind of learned the hosting role. And it was right about that time, which would have been 2013, 2014, where Fox Sports 1 launched. And they kind of said, hey, look, we're looking to try and figure out how we can integrate gambling content into our telecast. And I've been working with Clay Travis for a little while, doing some radio in Nashville. Clay was one of the personalities they brought on. He said, hey, look, go talk to my guy, Todd. There's nobody better for this kind of opportunity. And so we started, and I'll never forget, the first Friday night, Dave, I flew out to LA. They were paying me peanuts. I think it cost me more money to park my car at McCarran and to pay for dinner at LAX. And so it was a net negative. we go out there, we're talking college football betting, we're talking NFL, and I'm going, you know what? This stuff's great. I'm getting the hang of it. By Saturday morning, the NFL had sent Fox a cease and desist letter that, hey, you're not going to talk gambling around our games as one of our network partners. So we switched our content, became college football only, did that for a full season. And then you mentioned Race Hub was sitting in the Wynn Sportsbook with a couple of Fox executives for the NASCAR awards, just talking, shooting the breeze, having drinks. And they go, does anybody bet on NASCAR? I said, well, it's funny that you mention it. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to do it. One thing led to another. They said, hey, let's try and do NASCAR gambling stuff because nobody else is talking about it. And as irony would have it, that's the longest running show I've been a part of at FS1 Race Hub for the last 5 years or so, because NASCAR understood that, hey, look, we don't need to have the same governing body. We don't need to adhere to some of the same principles. Any publicity we can create for our sport will help. And it's really taught me an awful lot about the sport. And my running joke was, I grew up in Chicago in a middle-class Jewish household, and I somehow became a redneck going to school in New England, developed a love for country music and betting the races. My mom says she doesn't know what happened to me that ultimately brought me a full 180. But I wouldn't trade NASCAR for anything. I just wish they wouldn't keep screwing with the rules package because it's getting harder and harder to bet the damn sport than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
It is, and it's getting harder and harder to explain it to novices about betting it. It was just, I like the expansion of markets.
Yep.
And picking first, second, third, and the matchups are great and stuff. But when you have to explain why there's unofficial results and somebody
you want to talk about unofficial results? Of course, I feel like it's Murphy's Law when it comes to sports betting. I like to think that I was one of the only people that had Ross Chastain at 30-1 that I bet at Westgate that they had to overturn when he won the truck race. I thought I'd hit the mother load, ended up taking a nap, wake up 90 minutes later and find out, hey, look, NASCAR finally decided they're going to overturn a winner. It was the one time in the last couple of years I'd gone, man, I really wish I'd bet this truck race offshore so they would have honored my damn ticket.
Yeah.
Once you go to sleep, everything bad happens. It's guaranteed.
That may be subject matter for a different podcast, boys. I'm a little bit concerned about the deep, dark pasts and recesses that you guys are about to delve into here.
Yeah, that you'll have. That's it. Yeah, these guys are still living that life, Todd. Sleep is bad.
I'm jealous. Hey, Dave, you and I are jealous. I'm not completely out of the game, but approaching 40 with a serious relationship after 3 years, I'm jealous of what these guys are able to do on a night in, night out basis. Hang out till 4 or 5 in the morning, come rolling into the book to open the thing up first thing in the morning. I'm jealous.
Don't be jealous.
It's no way to live.
Do not be jealous, my friend.
It's a hard life, but
we're all looking for different things, dog. I can't even explain it. So that's a different show.
I was gonna say. Before we get there.
So before we get to some other questions here, so you go doing this and this lock it in, we'll call it, because that's what it was originally called until the pandemic hit and you guys came back as Fox Bet Live. But so you were hanging around, you were doing all this stuff, and then they go, we're going to take 3 of you guys and put Rachel with you, and you guys are going to talk sports and lines every day. With the cease and desist letter not that long ago.
Yeah, it was crazy. Once there was a repeal of PASPA, we all knew that the floodgates were going to open. It was just a question of which network is going to be first to market and how they're going to do it better, how they're going to do it smarter, and try and make sports betting relatable. And for that, I have to give the utmost credit to my now boss, Charlie Dixon at Fox, who kind of said, I want this show to be what he defined as a good hang. Essentially, people sitting at a blackjack table, more or less eavesdropping. He said, I don't want it to be too technical. He said, I don't need you to go into advanced analytics and try and confuse the audience. I want you to basically take all the stuff make it easily relatable so people can begin to view sports through a different lens. The crazy part about it is I knew that Clay and I were going to be a part of the show, but we had no idea that Cousin Sal was going to be on there or that Rachel Bonetta was going to be our host up till the 23rd hour. And we sat down and did our first table read, I believe, 10 days before the show went live. And honestly, after 2 seasons, now basically embarking on our 3rd, I couldn't ask to be part of a more enjoyable show on a day-to-day. The 4 of us genuinely get along, and when we do have a chance to hang out, we'll go out to bars and restaurants in LA. It's great. We've done the live shows in Vegas at MGM Season 1 or the stuff down in South Florida for Super Bowl last year. That we couldn't ask for a better setup. I would ask for better results from season 2, but since that's been stricken from the record book, I like to pretend that didn't happen, and I'm officially the only champion the show has ever seen, despite a performance that would only make Mo jealous that I put forth in season 2.
Every time I see you on there, I'm just like, this guy doesn't know anything. I know this.
Hey, you know what? You should feel that way. I mean, you could have put a blind monkey on there to pick games at a better clip than what I was putting forth in season 2. Every NASCAR winner, I bet, finished second or third. Every guy would pick to finish top 20 in a golf tournament would drop a meaningless stroke on the 72nd hole of the weekend. It really was what could go wrong, did go wrong. And the way I look at it, the universe didn't like that. And that's why I decided to erase that record from the annals of Lock It In, now Fox Bet Live history.
I like your style. That's my style.
He's responsible for all of this 2020.
That's it.
Why does that not shock me?
COVID would have never happened.
Why does that not shock me in the least?
It's the Men in Black forget thing where you just push it and it's gone. But before we move on to actual sports talk, I got to speak with someone named Royce Dickerson. And he's a producer of Fox Bet Live. And kind of mentioned that, one, he gave me a couple of lists of questions that maybe you would want to answer, maybe you wouldn't. So I'm going to ask them anyway. And the first one was, what the hell happened to you in season 2? How could you lose to Clay Travis when you're the damn expert?
You know, it's a great question. And you know what's funny? I mean, social media doesn't let you forget anything. And it's not like I shoot for my performance. I openly embrace it. When you pick games like an idiot, you deserve all the abuse that comes with the territory. But the reality of it was those guys hit more money line parlays than I've ever seen in my entire life to try and get there. To Clay's credit, he had LSU to win the national championship. You know, cousin Sal was able to find his groove. And I like to just think I was trying to level the playing field, that I had left myself when the pandemic struck in the middle of March, enough months for a Herculean-type comeback, knowing that we were able to bank some futures. If Tampa Bay had ultimately won the Stanley Cup, which they still might, the Ohio State Buckeyes could have been a Cinderella story to cut down the nets and win the NCAA championship.
Impossible.
But I just didn't want to blow everybody away. I mean, I feel like season 1 was anticlimactic because I was able to go into Usain Bolt after 60 meters and coast to the finish line. So I needed to spice things up a little bit. But honestly, I wish that was the case. I should just lower my head in shame and feel embarrassed. Of course, for a better
no, just deny. That's my type of move.
Yeah,
that's the only way to go, man, especially in this business.
That or drink more, one of the two, right?
Yeah, it's both.
Well,
drinking leads to deny.
You got their whole playbook right here. You got the whole playbook. You guys were all trained together. I like it.
It's the business.
Why do they call you the robot?
Well, you know what's funny? If you look over my shoulder, I mean, I have an actual robot patent now.
No fucking way.
That was bought for me. Yeah, my girlfriend gave me that gift on our 2-year anniversary. She says, you know what? When you redo your office, you have to put that up. And so, unfortunately, you can't see the whole picture, but it's not lost on me. Honestly, Dave, it's probably because of the season 1 performance. I mean, I was an encyclopedia of facts and figures, was able to get the best of the number all the time. And I joke that I can't remember names and faces of people I've met. I can't remember dates. I can't remember anniversaries, any of that stuff. But sports facts have always been one of those things that just stick. I wish, though, I had the same memory at 38 that I did at 25. It's amazing. I never believe people when they say you get older, you're going to forget some of the stuff. You always remember your bad beats. It seems to be funny how the human psyche works when it comes to sports betting.
That's a fact right there.
It only gets worse, Todd. I can just tell you that as I'm approaching 50, the memory only gets worse.
50 is the new 60.
Thank you. 50 is the new 60.
Yeah, my bad. No, I'm totally.
You added 10. You're supposed to take 10 off.
It seemed like it
Math is still not Mo's strong suit. Thank you.
He got so excited, and then he was like, "Wait."
Yeah,
it lagged. The sound lagged into the joke lagged into that.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. So the other thing that Royce told me to mention to you was he said that he thinks you weigh about $155, and you eat more than is humanly possible for someone your weight, despite being a food snob. Well, what is the deal with the food snob despite having an appetite of a horse?
You know what? The food snob part is something that I developed over time. And as I've gotten older, I spend more and more time researching diet and a lot of the things to try and stay healthy. I give Royce credit, though, because I was at 155 pre-pandemic, but as soon as the gym shut down, Mo, look that up. It's spelled GYM. You might want to try and check one of those out.
I think you said JIM. You're talking about a man, a person.
Hey, hey, not that there's anything wrong with that. But once the pandemic hit, you didn't have a chance to really do any lifting. So I've been shedding the pounds, got the cardio where it needed to be. If I jumped on the scale right now, I'd probably be about $147. But, hey, you got to take advantage when they put good food in front of you and Fox rolls out the buffet. You bet your bottom dollar I'm going to eat as much as I can on that company dime to make up for season 1 of Fox Sports Live. When like I told you guys, I was a net negative by the time I had to park my car and pay for my own dinner at LAX.
Oh, man. Last question for me before I let the boys have one or two at you. When is the last time you put the pads on?
Oh, that's actually a great question. And honestly, the last time I put my pads on was been the end of my junior year. It would have been a game. I'm trying to think who we played that final weekend at Wesleyan. It was either Tufts or Conn College. I dressed the Friday night. I didn't dress for Saturday, and I haven't stopped a puck since then. So I would have been 22. So we're going on, 16 plus years. But the crazy part about it though, I still have all the gear in the garage. I still have the goalie helmet with the Cardinal breaking through the brick wall, as like cliche as that is, with the paint chipped off. But it's one of those things that once you get the gear off and you realize the reflexes aren't the same, do I really want to go out there and let people fire slap shots at my dome? I take enough shots on Twitter. That's good enough at this point.
All right. That was ultimately my question is if we could hook it up, because I played club at Penn State a lot earlier than you did. But I would love if you had the time to put the pads on and maybe let me fire a slap shot or two at you just to see if you could stop it.
He's challenging you, Todd.
Honestly, Dave, I'm not even sure if I remember how to skate. I don't think I could shuffle right and left once I put the pads on. I might be more inclined to throw some shoes on, go a little street hockey, or throw off some rollerblades, and maybe we can find a building, the roof of a convenience store, and we can recreate the scene out of Clerks to make it look like it's shot in black and white and really have some fun with it.
There you go. That's perfect. I'm all for that. We can maybe hook that up down the road. In the meantime, we're not going to worry about putting the pads on. Did you wear the towel and have your hair perfect as the backup on the bench?
No, I was a guy that went with the hat. So I would always try and toss the hat on.
Okay.
But I did used to smuggle out Sour Patch Kids in my pads for games I knew I wasn't going to play.
Respect.
So I would have the Sour Patch Kids there. And I'd also try and be one of the first guys back to the locker room so I could get sports scores between periods, knowing that I was sweating the action on Fridays and Saturdays.
You're sick,
so,
maniac.
I had to make sure that I was sitting pretty in that particular regard. But I couldn't go with the towel. Coach had me in the penalty box. And I think my greatest contribution to Wesleyan hockey, outside the one win I have to my credit, was always trying to get my guys that secondary helper. Whispering in their ear, trying to go, hey, 27 had the second assist there. Take advantage of that hometown scoring, inflate those stats any way you could.
Excellent. AB, what do you got here for Todd?
Todd, we go back through the Caesars family here, and I was talking to Dave, and he was hitting me up and said, hey, we're going to have the star of Fox Bet Live. And you can imagine my disappointment when Clay.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. Well played. I knew where it was going and it got there. So you get a golf clap for that, Alan. I appreciate that.
No, but, I love you, man. Thanks for doing the show. You're doing a great job. It's actually one of the better shows that we see out there in the mainstream. When I'm listening to my man Chuck Barkley talk about the Jazz, why are the Jazz a dog? I'm like losing my mind. And then Kenny Smith follows up with he'd be a millionaire. And I'm like, oh, we got a long way to go.
You know what? Hey, I appreciate it. And that's the one thing, we draw a lot of criticism. There's no doubt for what we've done on Fox for the first 2 years. But I think people that watch it and they're expecting us to go into the X's and O's, us to talk about, everything that goes on in the race and sports. But that's never been our goal. That's never been the target audience. It's never what the show is ultimately going to be about. And I think people that have that kind of expectation, that think we're going to go out there and hit some ridiculous percentage for games. I mean, the network wants us to pick games people are going to watch. I got to fight tooth and nail sometimes with Royce that go, hey, I want to pick golf top 20s or I want to bet exhibition hockey. So it's one of those things. It's always trying to find that fine balance. And ultimately, if we can get more eyes on sports gambling and get people to feel comfortable with the terminology, get him to come out and visit the books here in other states where it continues to expand. I mean, that's ultimately the name of the game, because I like to think from you guys that work your tails off behind the counter to the ticket writers, to those folks that have come before us, anything we can do in media to cast a brighter light on sports betting is only going to help the entire industry as a whole, and hopefully ultimately hit the bottom line and allow us all to make more money as the space continues to grow and expand.
Well said, my man. Well said.
Ended it on finances.
Yeah. Well, that's the background. That and the Sour Patch Kids.
I don't have much.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sour Patch Kids thing, I might not be able to let get out. It might hurt my street cred, the little bit I had left from my former Wesleyan teammates. So might need to edit that out, but I don't think they're listening.
Todd, that you haven't worn the pads in 16 years.
Good point. Dave, the statute of limitations is long since worn off. I like your heads at.
That's it. Mo, what do you got?
Todd, before it's all said and done, obviously we don't know if college football is coming back. For people like me and you, we would want it or we're going to die, I would assume. So just for, bragging rights, we could do money off air, whatever. But we should have a handicap contest of just group of 5 colleges that are still alive if they're playing. Maybe just one game a week, and then just post it on Twitter and figure it out just between me and yourself. What do you think?
We can discuss the possibility for that. I feel like in that kind of contest, Mo, you're setting me up for failure because
exactly.
I have absolutely
That's
nothing.
exactly right. Yeah.
I have nothing to gain by beating you, but I have everything to lose by losing to you. So that's what I call kind of a zero-sum game in the grand scheme of things. The better idea is if you just submit your picks, we keep tabs. I actually bet your games, and if you don't turn a profit for me at the end of football season, Alan gets to slap you one time for each position that you've cost me money. So at least the worst case scenario, you can only be slapped, 8 or 9 times if you go out 1-9.
I'm in favor of this.
Okay, of course you are, number one. But you think too quick. I figured you were just going to be like, yeah, that's fine. But we'll go over the details. I need to renegotiate. But that sounds like a deal. At some point, that's going to be a deal. I
will give you credit, though. I mean, you'd come in there, in the middle of the week. You'd have your MAC power numbers ready to roll.
No question.
And there was only one guy in that Caesars book at the time, no offense to Alan or Jeff or any of the other guys that were behind the counter, that was trying to test me to see if I knew the third-string quarterback was for Ball State on a Tuesday night. I looked him in the face and said, honestly, I have absolutely no clue. You got me stumped here. The problem with all this was, though, as Alan can attest to, Dave, it still didn't allow Mo to make any money on these damn games.
Oh, shit.
I mean, he still couldn't figure out how to try and quantify the impact, which I'm not sure was good or bad. He might have been able to go on Stump the Schwab or win some stupid version of Sports Jeopardy, but it sure as hell wasn't him helping him make money at the window because he didn't understand the value of that particular player to the point spread.
Oh, you got him.
I can't even look at this guy.
Hold on.
I can't look at this man in the face.
I got to go get a shovel. Hold on.
Woo! Yeah, we're going to have to dig Mo out of that one. That was excellent work right there, Todd.
That was too
excellent
good.
work.
No, that was too good. He's right. It sucks because he's right. That's why I'm hurt. I would have been laughing more if it was wrong. I know that much right now. Oh, shit.
I mean, that's good stuff, man. Again, thanks for joining the show. But
of course,
let's get to some actual sports. Today's the start of the NBA, and I mean, you guys do a great job on the show, and we get the odds. You guys get the odds from Fox Bet, but you kind of have an idea of what the odds are and stuff. NBA, what are you looking at? Each conference, give me maybe 2 teams East, 2 teams West. And where you think maybe this is going to end up in the finals?
Honestly, it's so easy to pick the chalk. I mean, we know about the 3 prohibitive favorites out there, the Bucks in the East, and of course the Lakers and Clippers in the West. I've been on the Clippers bandwagon probably longer than I should have. I wouldn't run to advise a wager on the Clippers now, given how short their futures prices are. I think, honestly, a money line rollover, if seeds were to hold, would probably pay a little bit better. I do think the Clippers get a huge edge by not having to play a potential 7 true road games if they were to meet the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. We'll see how they hold up tonight against the Lake Show a little bit later. But when you look at this team top to bottom, I mean, they go 10 deep. I mean, assuming Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell join the team, you have so many guys that have been around the block, whether it's a guy like Reggie Jackson, who nobody thought of at the time they picked him up. You bring in some toughness in Marcus Morris. We know what Paul George and Kawhi Leonard bring to the table. I mean, there's a reason that they're 24-8 with those 2 guys in the lineup and 20-12 against the number, that they almost feel like they have another gear that nobody else can match. But when you're looking in the Eastern Conference, I can't buy the Bucks, not at the current price. So it leads you further down the list. And I think there's 2 teams that it's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination. The Celtics being one, knowing that Brad Stevens should be able to whip up game plans. Jason Tatum's an emerging superstar, and I like the fact that this team can beat you in a variety of ways. We'll see ultimately how much time Gordon Hayward were to miss, though, with the birth of his child, which I know is lurking in early August. And then the team that I think has been everybody's kryptonite, because you power rate them one way and they fail to live up to those expectations on a nightly basis. The Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, 29-2 at home, 10-24 when they go out on the road. Let's see if the bubble is the perfect environment that Brett Brown can show that he's not incompetent as a head coach, since I really believe he's coaching for longevity. Maybe the move of Ben Simmons, the power forward, pays dividends. But this is a team that's got veterans. They have youth, and they have all the talent in the world if they're able to put it together. So from a value perspective, those would be two teams I'd look at the East, because I think both of them are going to give the Bucks all they can handle and then some, if that's ultimately what we see in the Eastern Conference Finals.
That's a great breakdown. I'm impressed. You are a robot. Those numbers are right there, just flying. You got point spread numbers in your head, and they haven't played a game in 5 months or whatever it's been. So that's pretty good stuff. As far as maybe NHL, and now that I know that, you grew up playing a game, went to school playing a game, do you look to bet hockey, 1, and 2, what do you expect from like the bubbles in Toronto and Edmonton?
Yeah, I do bet hockey. Not a ton during the regular season. I'll pick my spots here and there. Obviously pick a lot more on the TV show because I'm not a huge NBA guy typically during the dog days of the season. But when you look at the way the bubble will play out, I think there are a couple interesting teams. I think what's going to be fascinating is to see how these teams respond. You get one, game speed scrimmage before you have to step right into that 5-12 qualification round for those teams, where if you play 2 bad games in a row, suddenly you're on the brink. So I think the teams, the top 4 seeds in both the East and the West, have a chance to get their sea legs under them, run 3 or 4 lines together, and allow the goalies to see some game action. I was big on the Avalanche coming into the season. I see no real reason to kind of waver on them. I know the price isn't the best at 8-1, where you could have had 25-1 earlier this year if you shopped around out here in the desert. But I think when you look at a team that benefited immensely from the layoff, they have 3 guys that aren't household names. Nathan McKinnon maybe, but Gabriel Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen that are going to be extremely difficult for teams in the West to contain. Philip Grubauer, in my opinion, becomes the X factor. If he can play well between the pipes, they become the team to beat. If you're looking further down the board in the West, I'm not going to make a case for our beloved Golden Knights. I'm not going to make a case for the defending Cup champions. But I think a team like the Nashville Predators would be one that I would watch. I know goaltending was a major question mark during the year. Pekka Rinne came into the season as a starter. We thought he was going to be the guy, but UC Saros stole a little bit of his thunder. This is a team that's been here, done that. They have a number of veterans. And I think if they click 20-1, more or less the prevailing consensus on the West, I wouldn't be afraid to take a flyer there. And as far as the Eastern Conference is concerned, you could throw a blanket over the top 4 seeds. I don't think anybody's a cut above. Maybe Tampa, tasting their blood from postseason that went awry last year, getting swept by the Blue Jackets, finally puts it all together. If you see the best from Andrei Vasilevsky between the pipes. But I would explore Carolina. And I know the Rangers have been the it team, or they were before the shutdown. But this is a Hurricanes team that we forget got to the Eastern Conference Finals before getting swept out by Boston. They get healthier on the blue line. Sami Vatanen should be back. Dougie Hamilton. We'll see how healthy both of those guys are. But you look at their numbers, they've fallen all season long. And I think Carolina, if you're looking for a bit of a Cinderella story, I like Rod Brindamore's style. He holds all his guys accountable. If they get through the Rangers, watch out. I think Carolina can do some damage in the East.
Man, that's an excellent summary from a hockey guy.
Herman's still a criminal. I don't care how many stats he knows. I haven't forgot that you're a criminal, man.
Deflect, Mo. Deflect, my friend.
It's just like a goalie.
A save and another save and a butte. The East is really interesting, and it's I can't wait for it to start. Out here in the desert, I mean, you're in Vegas. You live in Vegas. We're gonna have hockey from morning until night.
You know what?
Sports bettor's dream.
It's going to be incredible, Dave. And I joked about it earlier on a radio interview I did with the folks in Nashville. Hopefully we get that U.S. Open type feel. If we get a game in prime time that goes to triple or quadruple overtime, we could have a puck drop in Edmonton that starts at 10 o'clock local time. Mo will be coming in from drinking on his front porch. So he'll be able to watch a third period of a hockey game.
I'll have action on that game, by the way. I'll have action there.
You'll have 7 live bets at some point throughout the course of the game.
I won't tell anybody I lost, though. My style.
But I think it'll be great. I have to give the NHL credit. We would have loved to have Vegas as one of the bubbles. Unfortunately, circumstances didn't allow for that. So they were fluid. I mean, they moved the teams up to Canada to take care of things in Edmonton and Toronto. And I think it'll be fascinating to see what we get from the league. We can only hope that superstars stay healthy and that everybody gets a chance to watch hockey. What I define as the greatest playoff in all of sports, the level of intensity these guys bring night in, night out.
Absolutely. Before we get out of here, I just want to give you a chance to kind of plug the Bet the Board podcast. Dude, I listened to it. I don't know if Payne likes you, if he doesn't like you, if he's just cranky
Incredible.
all the time. I'm not sure. I mean, I like him, and I like a lot of the stuff he says. You guys banter back and forth is good, and the opening to the show is electric. Whoever put that together, full props. The opening to the show, if you haven't listened to it, go find it. It's called Bet the Board. Todd, tell everybody about the podcast.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned the opening. I can't tell you how many clips the two of us had to go through to try and figure out what was ultimately going to make it and not get left on the cutting room floor. And people ask all the time, oh, are you going to try and spice up the intro or mix it up? You know, if it's not broke, why fix it? I mean, I can compare myself to Mo's favorite show in Dawson's Creek. The music's iconic for a reason. And it stays.
I told you that in secrecy, by the way.
That as soon as anybody hears,
bringing that out now.
I love that show. Full disclosure. I mean, the reruns were on TBS, 10 to 11 Eastern. When I didn't have class back in college, I try and watch my fill here. Everyone had a soft spot.
That's fair. I'm okay with
Joey.
that.
Let's not kid ourselves.
I'm not mad at you.
And so the podcast is great. I mean, Payne comes off a little bit surly, but I love the guy. And trust me, it all depends on the day. There's days where we love each other. There's days where we hate each other. But we joke that, you know, a lot of the great athletes in sports only need one name. And I say the same thing about sports betting. There's nobody that works harder day in, day out, digging into some of the numbers, being a perfect complement. My job's easy. I come out there and try and treat it like I'm John Stockton. I throw the ball to the rim and Payne's right there like a Karl Malone. Hopefully we'll win more championships in the Jazz use. That's probably not the best, you know, point guard, power forward, parallel I can create. But we love it. And I think the one thing about the show, Dave, is people always ask, you know, we'll go through and it probably takes us, 10 to 15 hours to produce 1 hour of content. You know, I'll send an outline to Payne about 20 minutes before the show. So he has no idea where we're going and we kind of play off each other. So what you see is completely unscripted. We want to try and make sports betting as accessible as we possibly can. We know it's not for everybody when we try and dive into it, but our goal is to give people, after an hour's worth of content, at least one or two nuggets so the Mo's of the world can go to the water cooler, they can go into the office, they can steal your stuff, pawn it off as their own, and people think they're a lot smarter than they really are.
That's why we're all still broke, Todd, so you might want to just continue to work on that.
You know what, Mo? If you blindly bet the best bet we've given out on the podcast since we started 5+ years ago, you'd be hitting at about a 54, 55% clip. That's why it's kind of a one-stop shop, but we love it. And honestly, we have to thank all of our listeners out there that have made the podcast what it is. If it wasn't for them tuning in, week out, offering us feedback, we probably would have stopped it because we started doing the damn thing with tin cans and recording on a program called Go to Meeting. And now we've tried to ramp up the operations and hopefully, the next iteration allows us to be a lot more creative. But it's a labor of love and appreciate you guys giving me the chance to kind of plug it and ramble aimlessly about what we've been able to create.
As long as you're ripping on Mo, I'm completely okay with anything you're saying.
Todd thinks too quick. I didn't really have this in his bag, but he's very quick on it too. So I do appreciate that.
Alan, we can keep going. I mean, if you guys want, we can keep ripping on Mo if you want.
He's bringing the water out. No, we can do it.
At some point, it does become abuse.
He's just lighting me up. He's just lighting me up. This is fine.
He's raising his hand right now. I need a line change.
The thing about it, honestly, Reynolds, is that Mo is that boxer that has a 500 career record, but he keeps taking the paydays to walk into the ring. So you don't feel so bad because if he really felt bad for himself, he'd go, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done, and I'm not getting back out there to fight anymore. But Mo knows no better. He gets out there, he gets himself beat up. We can only hope that thing that he's got working between his ears ultimately functions for another couple of years.
Todd's been writing these jokes since the first time he met me. He said, I know.
Exactly how I thought. Our paths
I need to hit him with my best shots. These are your best shots. I know it is. So when we do
figured out, Mo.
I'm coming after you, my man. I'm coming after you, Todd.
Mo's going with the Homer.
I know he wrote him down. He said, "No, I got to get after this guy quick."
Did this show go on at the counter at Caesars?
You know, honestly, Dave, they wouldn't let me be there down the weekends because they know I'd have made Mo look so bad when he was trying to move numbers, and he didn't need any help moving things slower. I mean, there were runners out there that were licking their chops when Mo was back there because they knew exactly what hours the day he was going to be there. And as soon as Allen and the other sharp guys left, they went, oh, you know, there'll be a steam move that shows up. It's going to take Mo 17 minutes to move that number. So we're going to bleed in $250 a pop and try and create five-figure liability before he even knew what hit him.
He was busy sweating Phillies, Pirates, yes-no first inning when that steam move came.
I think I convinced Todd on like 3 or 4 Conference USA totals, and he quit from Caesars. He was like, nah, I think I'm going to find a better job at Fox at
they got this
Lock
guy.
It In.
They got this
I met a guy named Cousin Sal. I think I'm good.
Hey, I love my time there. Honestly, working with you guys and seeing what you guys built from a sports book that was an afterthought in the grand scheme of things is truly a credit to everything you've done. I mean, I was there years ago. There was a reason that I left, and it's not really worth getting into it because I didn't think Caesars had the vision. Well, Caesars didn't, I think, had the vision of being a player in the sports betting space and what you guys were able to accomplish over the last couple of years. I know Kevin Fulmer real well as well. That it was a credit, and it's going to be a shame ultimately as we continue to see more consolidation in the space and you don't have operators that are doing things differently, doing things outside the box, trying to create some unique markets. So for as much as I pick on you, Mo, Allen, you didn't have to bear the brunt of it. I tip my hat to you guys, Jeff Davis and the rest of the guys whose names I'm not going to remember right now. So
Last question regarding the industry was, you know, bringing all this stuff to the forefront in the media is great. And I think, you know, we enjoy doing this show as much or more than actually probably doing the job at the book and doing, you know, because it is a grind. Yep. And this has, I mean, it can be a grind, but it's a lot more fun. And it's, like you said, kind of sitting around talking, eavesdropping, whatever, giving each other shit and having fun. The future of the industry for guys that have been around it for a long time, like us, I know I have my thoughts. AB has his. Mo has no thoughts, so we don't even
thinking about nothing for years.
We don't want Mo thinking. But where do you think this is all going? You just mentioned consolidation. That's the tip of the iceberg, maybe.
Yeah, I think the industry is going to look a lot different 3 to 5 years down the road. We know who the big players are in the space. We know the dollars that they have to spend and the way that they're going about trying to acquire customers. So when you look at the way sports betting looks as we sit here late July 2020, if we were to have the same discussion 5 years down the road, I think it'll look a lot different. And ultimately, I think there's going to be a space to do things in a variety of ways. You're going to have some books out there that are going to go low margins. They're going to go lower hold that want to cater to the sharp guys. You're going to have books that continue to operate, looking to try and deal to recreational customers, offering them all sorts of bonuses. And I think for me, when I look at it, and I use a big word, so Mo, if you have to look it up, I'll understand if you pull out your mobile phone. The sports betting ecosystem, I think there's a way for all of these different type of operations to coexist. And hey, I've been in the same spot you guys have. There's some books that don't want my business, but having been on the other side of the counter, I understand that. And oftentimes things roll downhill. I just wish books would be transparent rather than saying, hey, we'll take big bets from everybody and then ultimately giving you 50 or $100. As long as you're open and honest, I have no fault in the way books choose to do business. I just don't like the fact that they kind of, operate in a little bit of a discreet manner. They're not forthright in sharing how they want to try and book. And I actually wrote an article on our Bet the Board website talking about, 7 to 8 things I would do if someone were to be nominated as a de facto sports betting president. And I think the first thing that I would like to see happen is posted limits, that regardless of who you were, even if it's only $250 for a WNBA total, we don't see people getting run out of books unless you're doing something illegal. And if you want to extend higher limits or higher credit lines or whatever it is, then you make those decisions on a case-by-case example. But I ultimately think the more stuff we can do as an industry in black and white is going to benefit sports bettors, it's going to benefit operators, and going to create a much more symbiotic relationship.
Yo, Todd didn't think you knew what ecosystem was.
I thought you were good when you said Todd didn't know. That alone, I thought you were going to end there. You didn't stop. You kept going. I thought we were okay.
I had a lot more to try and get out. Dave kind of gave me an open floor. I gave my 2-minute monologue if I can run to be sports betting president. Mo, you can be my campaign manager because I'm going to need somebody out there to do dirty work, and we know you got enough dirt under your fingernails.
Well, obviously you're a criminal, as I already stated. But once we're done with that campaign, then when you're writing and I'm running my own joint, which would be an insane deal, we'll get to that, later down the road.
You know what I like to think? There's a gas station somewhere in Mesquite that's going to look to be its own standalone operation with 1 to 2 terminals, Mo, and they're going to be extremely lucky to make you their VP of risk management.
When you're writing there, it's
You'd
going to be
happy,
sick.
though.
Look, when they write the book about this in like 40 years, if we make it there, then I'll be happy. I'll be content.
I can respect that. I'm happy. Mo, when you publish your autobiography and it's ultimately out there, the first book signing you do, regardless of where I live or the condition I'm in, I'm happy to be there. I'll be the first one waiting in line.
You're my man, dog. You're my man. Fuhrman.
You might have to write the foreword, actually, Todd.
Dave, what I was going to say, it's just going to be a picture book. I mean, let's not get it. I mean, that's going to be the reality of it. It's going to be 10 different pictures, little caricatures that somebody else will have drawn for him. And
I don't like how he set it up. That's some bullshit.
It'll be, the
really
baby's
good joke,
first
obviously. It's not even a joke.
First guide to sports betting. I mean, one way or another. And you know what the irony will be, though, Mo? You'll end up making millions off of the deal, and you'll get last laugh over the 3 of us.
That's what I love. That's all I know. I'm not going to know how to spend it, obviously, but I'll know when it happens. I'll be good.
Sports gambling picture books. That is probably the future of this industry.
That's it.
WNBA first half O's. That's what you'll be.
I hate the sky.
There you go. All right.
Both skies.
Todd, how'd the move go? You all settled in? I mean, did the DirecTV wires all get put together? I mean, it sounded like it was a disaster, brother.
It wasn't the most pleasant experience. The man cave's going to be a work in progress with college football getting slid back. We're working on getting things set up and established in time for the start of football season, September 10th. I wish it was going to be fully operational for hockey and, for the NBA resumption, the seeding, whatever that games we want to call it. But unfortunately, Handy is not my middle name. And if you're going to give me a drill and give me some of the brackets, there's no chance these TVs are going to get put up in a position where I don't have to sleep with one eye open, afraid that they're going to slam themselves into the floor in the middle of the night.
Who's really good with that shit? Mo. Mo is really, really good with that shit.
I'm not
get him pretty cheap.
I'm not trusting Mo with anything better than a black and white 13-inch TV with rabbit ears.
Simple. Yeah. I can't be trusted with much. So at least you know that much at this point.
Very good point. I got a good scouting report on you, buddy. I'm good.
Oh solid. All right, fellas. That's going to do it for the show. We got Todd Fuhrman, dude. Thanks so much for staying with us the whole time. He's the former financial analyst, former odds maker at Caesars, current analyst on Fox Bet Live, host of the Bet the Board podcast, at Todd Fuhrman on Twitter. Thanks again for following us and joining us today on the show. Go easy on Mo on Twitter, please.
He needs to know that I think he still has me blocked from like 2 years ago.
Not blocked, just muted.
There it is.
There you go.
Too much truth, man. He doesn't like the truth. He doesn't like the realness.
Alan, I'm going to go to you first. Todd, we always do a take a minute segment at the end of our shows. You're more than welcome to do one. I'm going to give the boys the forum first. You're like the last kind of, you get the defense attorney, close, cross, whatever it is. So, Alan, first, if you have anything, take a minute. Now is your time.
I just want to get the house rules on how many times I get to slap my toy. That's all I'm really interested in over the next month or so.
Make sure you write it on Twitter. I feel like people should know that.
Yeah. No, we'll have clauses and everything.
I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Day one, Fonzie parlay. A's, Rays, Jays. Winner, cash the ticket, 6.2 to 1. A's let us down the second day, and now they're not playing and everything else. So keep an eye on that for Twitter.
The Blue Jays got the quarantine postponed, so they'll battle back soon, and we're gonna keep cashing that ticket.
Yep. Mo Toy, what do you got? 1 minute. You got your man right here. Get up off the mat, Mo.
I don't have much. No, I'm good right now. I was flurrying. He thought he had me, but I'm okay. No, honestly, I'm happy that sports are back. I'm happy that we get to do this still, man. I was at work today, something that Fuhrman doesn't know anything about because he's a criminal. But I was booking that Pelicans Jazz game today, and it brought back, memories of what it was before COVID. I don't know how much time that was, obviously, because I don't know much. But it's fun. It's fun to be in this business, man. And, I was just happy to be back at work with actual, markets that are pretty liquid for me to book.
Thank you. Excellent. We didn't talk soccer. We didn't talk golf. We got the main sports in. Todd Fuhrman, on the way out here at Cash Considerations, do you have a minute? It's the late rounds. You got them on the ropes. It's up to you to deliver the knockout blow.
Mo's already standing 8 count. I mean, he looks like King Hippo in the old school Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. You hit him a couple times in the belly, but he's sitting down. He's not getting back up off the canvas. But all kidding aside, guys, you guys consistently put out good content. You have fun with the industry. And I think there's so many people out there that take sports betting way too seriously. Let's not kid ourselves. 98 to 99% of the people that are betting the games are doing it as a form of recreation. I always say do it responsibly. Never take money away from things on a day-to-day basis that are going to impact your quality of life. Otherwise, you're going to end up without a roof over your head, without food on the table, and you could be Mo's roommate on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard.
My man. And that's coming soon. I'll put out all the information later.
He doesn't even have a timer, fellas. He just has the timer in his head.
He's a robot. He's got the schematics right behind him.
This
is a simulation. Living in a
52. Oh, what a pro. Todd, thanks again.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
My man.
See if we can get Alan called him the real star of the show. Clay Travis maybe can join us at some point, or Cousin Sal. I want to thank Royce Dickerson. He's at Royce3D for making the contact, and he's been listening to the podcast. He gave me those questions. I wanted to thank him. For the boys, we got Motoy Pearson at Heat These Takes, sweating the Laker game. We got at Percent Berg, Alan Berg, also apparently sweating the Laker game. We got Reynolds. I am Reynolds 2305. Excellent job, sir. Thank you for getting it all set up. Sound checks. And just want to mention the Gaming Today News. Howard at Gaming Today News. Check that out. The print edition is available in sports books as well as the electronic edition. And myself, the show at GT Cash Consider. Keep following along. Keep participating in pools. And watch out for what Fuhrman does to Mo here on Twitter. It's probably going to be pretty good.
He just hurt because I called him a criminal.
I'm Dave Sheriffin at Sportsbook Consigliere at SportsBK Consig. We will see you guys next week. Welcome back, sports.